Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and in just a handful of weeks, War Within is going to go into overdrive, giving players an opportunity to turbo outgear their character. There's so many different and awesome changes on the horizon when it comes to powering up your main or your alts, giving players an opportunity to catch up all of their alt characters that they've always wanted to play with Warbound Valor Stones, uncapped crests, and there's so much to be excited about. Plus, we got even more 11.15 content on the horizon with visions coming up oh so soon. Blizzard also gives more information regarding the Goblin Cartel chips, which are going to be a currency that you'll be able to use to purchase some of the best gear from the liberation of the Undermine raid. Very similar to dinars of Shadowlands or bronze bullions of Dragonflight. If you played for either of those two expansions, this is going to be a currency that allows you to exchange a couple of these tokens to buy some of the best gear from the current Goblin raid. However, Blizzard, while unveiling these chips, have also found a way to upset the entire community, as they've actually created some really strange and very much disliked limitations to the token, and I kind of want to break it down, exactly what players don't enjoy, exactly why it doesn't meet their expectation, why the community is in an uproar, but also how I think they could easily fix it to satisfy everybody for the War Within Season 2. With that though, as always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for War Within patch 11.15, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right into this discussion. Why is everybody upset about the puzzling cartel chips? And it's not that players are really upset about them. In fact, it was actually one of the most exciting parts of 11.15 content. The upcoming update that was going to be a major catch-up for so many players. There was a lot of good feelings and good anticipation regarding this feature because we saw how well it worked towards the tail end of Shadowlands, and then they iterated on it to make it even better towards the tail end of Dragonflight. Many players have had a really good time with this currency that allowed you to buy some of the best raid gear of that season, so you could finish out your character and power up and really feel at your strongest without all these limitations being in your way, allowing you to get into more difficult dungeons, more difficult raids, and complete all of the seasonal activities. It was the ultimate piece of the puzzle to finish up the season. So a lot of players were genuinely excited about the Cartel chip, but as soon as Blizzard revealed what the chip was going to be used for as part of the turbo boost, that's where players got disappointed. In fact, the actual Turbo Boost event that's coming up in, I think, a handful of weeks now is an insane good opportunity for players to catch up and get geared. This is going to uncap currencies such as crests, so you can farm gilded crests up to infinity, crafting a bunch of max item level gear, crafting some of the best items. Not only that, but also Valor Stones are finally being made Warbound, which is amazing. It'll make gearing your alts and crafting gear and doing everything when it comes to gear related for all your other characters so much easier. I am hoping to live the caps on Valor Stones just because my main is always sitting on 2k cap, so I'm not really sure exactly how they're gonna make that warbound, but it would be nice if they just were to lift it completely, because there's a good chance that my main is going to continue to earn endless amounts of Valor Stones as the season goes on. And that Turbo Boost is also going to amp up a bunch of our gear with Mythic Track and Hero Track items. This will be the perfect opportunity for players to get some of the biggest power spikes out there, to dive into difficult dungeons, to finish out all the seasonal activities, to do some of the hardest raids in the game. So there's a lot of good things that were on the horizon, and then they introduces the Cartel chip, a piece of the currency that we remember fondly from Dragonflight and Shadowlands that many players had really high hopes for because it was such a well-received system that even got iterated based on community's feedback. But it seems like Blizzard this time around is taking a bit of a back step. They've actually came out with a blog post trying to make the Cartel chip thing a little bit better, but it still is quite a bit of a disappointment. So the changes to the Cartel chip, essentially it's a currency that will allow you to buy any item of raid gear from the Liberation of Undermine, just like how it worked back in Shadowlands and Dragonflight. So some of the best items, like if you need a House of Cards to make your character the strongest they could be, or if you need best in slots to be the most powerful warrior or death knight or paladin you've ever been, you'll be able to buy these items directly with some of these Cartel chips. Now, Blizzard is already amping up the currency, and you'll be able to get 3 of these chips immediately whenever the Turbo Boost event goes live. And then you'll be able to earn additional chips every single week. And all you have to do to earn a chip is to stay for raid bosses. I don't think it matters what difficulty you gotta be on. Any difficulty should be good enough. And then you'll be able to buy raid gear using these chips, where each item is going to cost you 3 chips. So when they give you 3 chips immediately, you can just buy an item immediately as soon as you get those chips. And then you'll be able to earn 1 a week, up to 9 chips overall. So you're looking at 3 potential pieces of gear you could just buy from the raid, which is amazing and it's awesome. However, the biggest issue with the chips is the new stipulation that they have, which is more of a limitation more than anything. So there's going to be 2 variations of the gear that you'll be able to get from Liberation of Undermine raid. There'll be the hero track version, which comes from heroic difficulty, and then the mythic track version, and how you earn them will be different. So for a hero track, you have to kill the boss. Like, let's say you want a one-armed bandit, House of Cards, and you want it like on hero track. Hey, you just got to kill this boss on heroic difficulty, and then you can go buy this trinket. But let's say you want, I don't know, Aya Kazan as your best, or maybe, you know, Jasper's Diamond. Let's go with a realistic option. You want Jasper's Diamond to complete your class set. It is the best ring for your class. So much mastery in order to really pump up your class in a variety of different ways. I mean, look at this thing. It's a beauty. And you want it on Mythic, but to get it on Mythic, you first need to defeat Chrome King Galawix on Mythic. So this already presents a bit of an issue where now you have a new requirement where you have to defeat these bosses on relevant current difficulty in order to get the relevant difficulty based loot. So defeat the boss on heroic to get hero track, or mythic to get mythic track. So it ends up being not really a currency to purchase gear from a raid, but rather a bad luck protection that benefits raiding players more than anybody else. And the War Within offers content for Mythic Plus players and Delve players, and there's an opportunity now where those players could potentially be left out. So the next crux of this topic is the issue itself within the token, which a lot of people are unhappy about. What if you don't raid? Because I know a lot of players, I know a lot of friends of mine that love pushing Mythic Plus dungeons. They're willing to push 14s, 15s, and even 16s, but they just don't have like a consistent guild for Mythic Plus, Mythic raid progression. It just isn't available for their schedule, right? They could sit down with a group of 5 people and grind through some of the most grueling dungeons out there, trying to get, let's say, the best titles for the end of the season, but they just don't have the time in order to commit to a full raiding guild and raid and progress through all these bosses on Mythic. And it's not like Mythic raids are really all that puggable, and it's just overall, it's its own ecosystem that's a little bit harder to crack into. You can't just be like a fresh player, brand new, off the block, and then start mythic raiding immediately. It is something that takes a lot of time, dedication, as well as knowing the right people to get into some of the better guilds so you can have really solid progression and see some of those end bosses and even get the cutting edge achievement, and then potentially even maybe even get a decent ranking on the leaderboards. So players that don't necessarily mythic raid, which is kind of its own club of exclusivity to some degree, so because it's not super accessible, there's an opportunity for Mythic Plus players in particular to kind of be locked out of the using the Cartel chip. And technically you can still do it, it's just you won't get the most value out of this chip. Oh, by the way, Delve players included in that list as well. Because this new iteration of the token kind of locks it behind some of the most difficult content out there, which is understandable, right? You want players to be able to actually defeat the content in order to be able to get the items, and the token offers for Mythic players bad luck protection. But if, let's say, you don't have a raiding guild, you kind of lock to maybe potentially hero track variation of these items with your Cartel chip. And yeah, you can buy the House of Cards from One Arm Bandit, or maybe even the best in slots on hero track quality from using this chip, but because you have the chips in such small quantity, you'll feel like you would have lost a value getting the hero track version over the mythic track version. Like if you just want to finalize your character for the season, get some of the best gear, you can't technically get the best variation of this item. And if you were to spend the chip on hero track items, I could totally see players feel like they wasted that chip in the process when they could have had a mythic track version. This also potentially could create a situation that where players might feel like they maybe should just buy a carry run. I mean, it's just going to take you a couple of WoW tokens that are easily available. All you got to do is chill out cold hard cash for these, but that'll give you quite a decent bit of gold. And eventually when you mass enough of them, you could just buy a carry run for the boss that you're looking for. One Arm Bandit, Mugsy, potentially even Galawix. I'm sure there's going to be guilds that will be in the market to sell these bosses. However, I don't really know if that's really also healthy either. And by making this currency something that's only interactable for raiders, players that don't raid might feel like they're incentivized to now buy a carrier run. And again, like when you put that in perspective, when you put that in a sentence, it just doesn't quite sit right with me, you know? I don't think that's the correct direction for the game specifically, especially with how fun War Within has been so far. And overall, the evolution of the dinar token, this feels like a step back compared to what it was originally. It was an opportunity for players to be able to purchase some of the best rate gear. And now it feels like the dinar token, or the chip cartel token, is almost like taking a bit of a step back compared to the best version that we've seen so far, where a lot of players wanted for Blizzard to find ways to improve on this token and make it easier for players to use, make it better, make it more rewarding, make it more fun. They found a way to kind of like take a step backwards instead with these new limitations, which is unfortunate. And I mean, and while this version, some people may argue, is a different thing, it's not a free item token, it is a bad luck protection token. Perception, to some degree, can sometimes be more powerful than reality. And right now, the perception is that this is definitely a downgrade from what the original token was, and that is something Blizzard actually just has to deal with. However, I didn't want to make this video without coming up with some solutions, because I've actually been thinking a lot about how they could potentially satisfy this dinar token. Because trust me, I have a lot of friends that play Mythic Plus exclusively. If they are changing the token, the dinar, the cartel chip, from a gear token to like a bad luck protection token, I think that is perfectly fine if they want to shift the focus of it completely. I am okay with it as long as they expand that bad luck protection to other players outside of just Mythic Raiders, because right now, unless you're Mythic Raiding, you may find this token just kind of not as useful. So why don't you throw Mythic Plus players a bone by giving them also some bad luck protection for the season by giving them a Mythic Plus gear vendor as well. Because most of the dungeon gear you can only actually get on champion track or hero track, and then maybe have an RNG chance to loot it from your Great Vault on Mythic. But what if you could just add some bad luck protection for Mythic Plusers, and you could buy the Signature Parry on Mythic track? And when you think about it, Mythic Plus gear, like separated away from raid gear, is actually very strong this season. And there's plenty of really good castle trinkets from Darkflame Cleft and even Cinderbrew Meadery. We have the trinket from the Operation Floodgate, the C4 Pacemaker, which is still so solid for strength and agility classes. And then you just take Priory and we got the best healer trinket, the best tank trinket, as well as the best 2-minute DPS trinket of the Signet of the Priory. There's so many good and powerful competitive items, and then there's other things like Mechagon bracers for Fire Mages, or Archamage Staff, or any of these other items that are available for Mythic Plus. What if Mythic Plus players also had some sort of bad luck protection? Then they could also utilize the token. And you could even do the same thing, like, you know, how you need to kill bosses on Heroic or Mythic and Raid in order to be able to get that item as bad luck protection. Maybe add some kind of like a Mythic Plus score requirement. Achieve a certain amount of score, and now you could just buy any item on Mythic track quality. How nice would that be? And I think for so many Mythic Plus players, that would help them to finalize the character with actually competitive gear for the season, while still allowing raiders to keep value for some of the best gear that they feel like they've earned. Mythic Plusers can get some of the best gear that they feel like they've also earned. But also add something for Delve players as well, especially if Blizzard wants to continue to support and really treat Delves as like a third form of endgame PvE progression, to be properly parallel with dungeons as well as with raids. Treat Delve players to some gear as well, give them a vendor as well. Like, Delve gear actually is capped to just hero track at all times, but it has some of the most competitive items, unique pieces of gear with additional bonus damage, bonus defensive, healing effects that are actually really good. You just gotta lock down to hero track quality at the highest. But what if you gave them a mythic tier quality of all of these items as well? Delves have some of the strongest trinkets in the game. Technically, you just are limited by their item level, again, hero track quality and all that. But if you could uncap that item level, you could get some of the best gear out there from Delve content. And if they wanted to make it, you know, something that's a reward for players encountering difficult content within Delves of the season, add some requirement of like, get all Delves done at tier 11 and maybe kill the underpin on the highest, hardest difficulty. Something like that, you know what I mean? Like, add some sort of a set of requirements for players before they can unlock all these items to feel like they've really earned them. If they really want to add this kind of like earned sense of accomplishment to all of these different pieces. And something like this would basically make everybody happy. Mythic Plusers have their own opportunity to get bad luck protection from the content that they enjoy. Delvers will be able to do the same thing and get some of the strongest characters out there just through Delve content. And Mythic Raiders will be able to get some of the best gear from Mythic Raids. And in a way, this will satisfy all parties no matter what content you play into, and allows you to get the items that you were looking for from the content content you were interested in the most. I think that's actually probably one of the best ways of going about it if they don't really want to change up the token. And it's not like they can't add a vendor for these things. They literally have these vendors for you to test out the best variations of these delve, dungeon, and raid gear literally on PTR. So they could literally add these vendors and just make the currency the same currency that you would do for the liberation of Undermine. I think something like this would be a fantastic but also possibly a really easy solution that encourages players to really tackle difficult content for the season to be able to finalize their character and earn all of these items. So it's not like they're giving that to you anyway, right? If they really don't want it to be a token that just is a give to anybody for gear, which a lot of people still would like to see. A lot of players actually want them to go back to how it worked in Dragonflight, but if they're so stubborn and they're not willing to do that, at least give players, no matter what endgame content that they're interested in, their own form of bad luck protection and the best gear from their favorite content. Now, for my final closing thoughts, I really do think if anything Blizzard does going forward is definitely just keep listening to the community. Community's feedback really shaped the season 2 that's been so fun in War Within. Like, this is actually one of the most fun seasons I've had in War Within so far. It's better than season 1, and it's even so much better than some of the other earlier Dragonflight seasons. This is the most fun I've had with the game in quite a bit of time. Whether I'm playing ults, whether I'm playing my main, it's been super satisfying, especially for M+. Many players thought that this season's dungeons were actually going to be the worst during the development of 11.1 PTR. This was looking like a horrendous season, the worst dungeons they could have picked from. But then listened to community feedback, adjusted these dungeons, and they're actually so fun. They're actually so good to get through, and there's not that many ones that I actually dislike. In fact, I like most of them than not. And that was done thanks to the community feedback. The changes to gear, the changes to tier sets, the power gains, all based on community. The reason why we have such a fun season in season 2 is because of the community, and I feel like they should just continue keeping an ear to the community, and if they're telling you there's something they like or something they don't, I really think they should listen to it very, very closely because we got here thanks to the community, and I feel like this season can continue to be good with the help of the community's feedback. But as always though, I really want to thank you guys so much for watching and hope you guys did enjoy this discussion video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Also, join our Discord community to keep up with all the regular patch changes and class changes if we're going to be getting any with the Turbo season being applied in just a handful of weeks. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.